Hi everybody, I'm Reus. I'm founder and chief instigator of Openly Disruptive. This video is to help explain a tool that you can use to articulate the vision that you have for what you're working on. Now this vision could be for an individual company or an individual product within a company, or it can be used for a whole ecosystem, a platform to align the stakeholders in the ecosystem to produce really big change. But regardless, you need to start with a vision. I think that most people think that their vision has to be persuasive and has to come after they've figured everything else out. And what I want to show you is a way to use the vision right from the very beginning, that you can, regardless of how far along you are, you actually have a vision. And we're going to show you this version in terms of a diagnostic tool so that you can use it to interact with people and have lots of conversations to improve the vision and to get more people involved in what you're doing. So, because you really need a structure that helps you learn more than you need to be perfect right now. So these are worksheets on a TerraPad. I frequently have these with me, but even when I don't have these with me, I'm frequently sorting through this on my own. And you'll see it's a 5-node mind map. So, and the reason it's 5 nodes is because we want to have, the human brain can hold on to 7 ideas. So we want them to hold on to what your name is, how they met you, and what you talked about. Because ultimately, you want to be able to really improve this, and you want them to have a positive memory of you so that you can re-engage them over and over again. So this particular mind map, you'll see it's got 2 nodes on the top. These are going to be about the market that you're serving, where you're creating new value between stakeholders. Down here is going to be what you can protect, what's your fence, what's differentiating for you, and this is the big job to be done. Why it matters to everybody, and we'll show you how to put all that together over here. So let's start. So up at the top, the first thing it says is what are the 2 people or groups that you can best help? Put them in the top ovals. So let's use an example of Starbucks. Starbucks, most people are familiar with it. Let's talk about that. If Howard Schultz was doing this in the early days of Starbucks and I was talking to him, he might say, well, the 2 people, I'm going to help men and women, or I'm going to help adults and children, or I'm going to help my employees and the public, or whatever. And none of those things are terribly differentiating or unique, and they don't really help us actually understand the economic value that he's creating. But in talking to him, if we'd talked a little bit more about that, we might boil down to like, well, really actually what it is because of our first store, I kind of get the coffee drinking mass market, actually. He might say, and actually, we've been so successful at our first store in Pike Place Market that I think that investors want to invest in this and they want to see what we could do. And like, okay, so that's kind of interesting. So we're talking about the coffee drinking mass market and investors. And that's kind of interesting because really what we're going to see is we're going to see the investors are going to deploy capital and the customers are actually going to provide returns because this is going to be profitable. And so that's kind of a virtuous cycle there. That's kind of interesting. Now, what are the 2 unique things that she'll bring? And those go down here in the bottom ovals. Now, if Howard would say, well, we're going to have coffee and we're going to have cups, I would say that's not terribly unique. Let's talk a little bit more about it. And he might say, well, we're going to have coffee and we're going to have pastries. And once again, that's not terribly unique. Or we might have coffee and might have tea, or we might have, lots of different things. And, but when we really boiled down to what was really unique about that first store that he wanted to scale, is he might say, well, actually what we have is we have this third place where you really want to be. And so just third place, YRB, you really want to be. It's this third place. Pike Place Market, people wanted to come back there even if they weren't in the neighborhood and everything. That's pretty powerful. What else do you have? Well, he kind of talked about it. And, ultimately, we have this way to roast the beans, and we have this way to handle water, and we have these other things so we can have a consistent coffee experience. And that's pretty unique, so I'd put that in this next oval. And then the question is, what good thing happens for everyone? Not just the coffee drinking mass market and the investors, not just Howard and and his employees, but what good big thing happens for everybody if you succeed? And he'd say, well, I would get rich, or my employees would get benefits, or the neighborhood would prosper, or all of those things. And those are all really great things, but what's the really big thing if you really scale this up? And he might say, well, really, if we started talking about it, the truth is, if we do this, we can create the first global coffee brand, because these things allow us to do that. And now we just translate this over to this Mad Lib over here. So in this blue shaded box right here, we can just say, for the coffee drinking mass market and Howard's investors, we're going to bring this third place you really want to be and a consistent coffee experience wherever you go to create the first global coffee brand. And usually when I do this, there's like this aha moment, like, yeah, that's what we're really talking about. So the idea here is not to be a perfect business plan, and the idea here is not to language this so that you're trying to have this be something that you would put on a billboard or whatever, but to get to a tool that really lets you understand the moving pieces of your vision. So now this is really powerful, because the reality is Howard is going to go out and he's going to have hundreds, possibly thousands of conversations with employees, with investors, with suppliers, with landlords, with zoning boards, with all kinds of people. And he's going to need to do, he's going to have a lot of conversations where he's going to have to say, the TLDR, the too long don't read, is, hey, would you give me an hour of your time if I can bring together the coffee drinking mass market, some investors, and by using the third place that you really want to be, that we've learned how to build, and this consistent coffee experience wherever you go, we think we can create the first global coffee brand. And so he can say, use that to say, here's an email or here's a text. Here's what I'm doing. Could you give me an hour of your time so we could talk about this? Because I'd like to talk about having first dibs on any new real estate development that you open up. Or I want to talk about you being our exclusive coffee roaster, or we want to talk about whatever. But it gives him a reason to say a small ask and to say, here's what we're doing. And then when he gets into those meetings and says, hey, thanks for giving me an hour of your time, because I really want to talk about how you can help us be the designer of record to make all of these third places this really comfortable places, because I want to talk for an hour, but we're doing is we're bringing the coffee drinking mass market and our investors together with this third place you really want to be, and a consistent coffee experience wherever you go to get this first global coffee brand. And with those people, then he would be able to start really getting feedback and understand and building relationships and everything, because the important thing here is not to be right, but to actually be engaging. So remember, this vision is not meant to be the perfect vision. The vision is meant to be a diagnostic tool so that you can really rapidly iterate in all of the conversations you're having. We don't start with certainty. We know that we're going to learn a lot. But this is a very structured way to learn, to go out there and ask a lot of questions. So thanks for spending a little bit of time with me. I hope this is useful to you. You can email me at dan@openlydisruptive.com, and I'll be happy to share with you a PDF of this. But also I can tell you a little bit more about how to do it. And in my next video in this series, I'm actually going to show you how you can use this to, as you start getting feedback, to really start refining this and to actually build out how you're going to go to market and how you're going to build this out to scale. And that will allow us to actually understand what is the mechanism that's going to allow you to get to scale. And that'll be in the third video in this series. So now you've learned a way to create a vision that helps you carve out your product market fit, because up here we have the market. Down here, what we've really done is, let me draw a fence here. So here's our fence. This is the fence that we can build. This is what we can protect, and this is what we can really define and build on our own, our differentiators. And this is really just the job to be done. You might have heard of that before. So this is a really useful tool. If I was working with Howard or with anybody else, I wouldn't tear this off the and say, that's really great. I might be able to say, here are some other exercises we could do if we're working together. But ultimately, Howard would have a way to quickly start improving what he's doing with the people that really matter. Thanks for joining us, and feel free to reach out if I can answer any questions for you.